So, imagine this. You've lived in a country for nearly 30 years. You've built a life, you're part of a community, and then all of a sudden you're told you have to leave. That's the real-life story we're diving into today, a case out of Italy that brings up some huge questions.
At the very center of this whole thing is this single, incredibly powerful quote. These words, spoken during a sermon, ended up being the linchpin for the Italian government's entire case. And the fallout? It was immediate and it was serious. A statement just like this led directly to him being deported, which really sets the stage for the whole conflict we're about to explore.
All right, so who is the man at the center of this controversy and what exactly led to him being kicked out of the country? Let's break it all down. Take a look at this number, 29. Now, why is that so important? Well, that's how many years the man we're talking about had lived in Italy. 29 years. That's practically a lifetime.
So to really get the full picture, we need to know a little more about the main character in our story, the man from Bologna. His name is Zulfiqar Khan. He's a 54-year-old cleric, and he's originally from Pakistan. But for most of his adult life, Italy was his home.
You know, his history in the country goes way back. He arrived in 1995, and for years he was the Imam at the Iqraa Islamic Center in Bologna. And then came October 8, 2024. Everything changed. Just like that, his residence permit was revoked, and he was expelled from the country.
So here's the big question, right? Why would a long-term resident suddenly get deported? Let's take a closer look at the official reasons the Italian authorities gave.
You know, one key word that kept coming up in the government's case was infidels. According to the authorities, this is the term Khan was using in his sermons to talk about non-Muslims, Western governments, and supporters of Israel.
And the official deportation order? It did not mince words. It specifically called out what it described as his escalating radicalism, and it noted that his sermons praised things like martyrdom and the actions of mujahideen.
To get even more specific, here's the list of justifications the government laid out: promoting violence, antisemitism, support for groups like Hamas, praising martyrdom, and of course, those repeated calls for Muslims to fight infidels.
But here's the thing, and this is really crucial to understand. This case wasn't just about one person. The deportation of Zulfiqar Khan is actually a perfect example of a much broader national strategy that's happening under Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's government.
Yeah, the key takeaway here is that this was not some isolated incident. It feeds right into the government's stated policy against what it calls radical Islamism, and the stated goal is all about prioritizing the protection of its citizens.
So this policy has a few different parts to it. First, they're starting to monitor religious leaders and mosques a lot more closely. Second, they're much more willing now to revoke residency for migrants they see as a security risk. It doesn't matter how long they've been in Italy. Third is aligning with allies like Israel against terror groups. And fourth, and this is a big one, they're putting a major emphasis on cultural assimilation over multiculturalism.
And you know, this policy isn't just about security measures. It's really rooted in a much deeper, more fundamental debate about national identity, about culture, and about what it really means to integrate into Italian society today. This really gets to the heart of the ideological conflict. On one side, you have cultural assimilation. That's the model the government prefers, where immigrants are expected to adopt the culture of the host country. On the other side is the idea they're pushing back on, multiculturalism, which they argue can lead to what they call parallel societies fostering hate.
So what does that term parallel societies actually mean? Well, it's this idea that some communities can become so isolated that they start to operate separately from the rest of the nation, developing their own values that the government fears can sometimes become hostile.
And all of this brings us back to this really complex, fundamental question, one that goes way beyond this single case in Italy. How should any nation balance the need for national security with the rights of people who have lived there for decades? There are absolutely no easy answers, and it's a question that countries all over the world are grappling with right now.